Let's bring in Florida Congresswoman Paulina Luna. Congresswoman, good to see you. So again, as Rand Paul just mentioned, this is over 1,000 pages. It's $1.2 trillion in spending, a lot of pork in the bill. You didn't have enough time to read it. How did Speaker Johnson go to your conference and try to sell this package?
We had anticipated that something like this was going to be coming down our way. And so, honestly, it was dropped at around 3 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. We didn't have a lot of time to go through it, but I can tell you that I didn't get one call from my people in my district asking me to vote for this. And so I listened to them. I voted against it. But I just really want to point out something in that it is alarming that of the $1.2 trillion, over $880 million of that went to securing foreign borders instead of our own.
It's just astonishing. And to Marjorie Taylor Greene's point, the Republican internal rules call for just 72 hours to review the legislation. And one of the sticking points was more money for immigration and customs enforcement without adding the tougher border security measures. Do you think that Speaker Johnson goes?
I mean, I think it's really going to be up to the conference to decide. But, when someone files a motion to vacate, they still have to call that up. So just because it hasn't been called up or just because it's been filed doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be called up. And so I guess we'll have to see kind of what unfolds. And to be quite honest with you, I just don't see that there are the votes in the Republican body to get a very, very conservative speaker elected. And so what I'm really focused on is, can we deliver on the promises that we made to the American people? And frankly, right now we're failing at that. And so I'm absolutely not going to be changing my vote, especially in regard to some of the spending. But it is really it's upsetting. And, it's going to be your grandchildren. It's going to be my grandchildren that are going to be having to pay for this.
Yes, I don't think you should get rid of Speaker Johnson. You're going to spend more time trying to pick a new speaker, get about the business of the American people. But the problem is there's a long-standing rule, even when I was there, that you want to get a majority of the majority to vote for a bill. Only a minority of Republicans voted for this package that Speaker Johnson negotiated.
I agree. And I think that, that should tell leadership that we don't want to continue down this path. But again, there's going to be a lot that's unfolding. I did just get word that we might potentially be voting on a standalone Ukraine aid bill. And as you all know, I've been very vocal about not wanting to give more aid to Ukraine because I frankly don't believe that we as a country not only should be getting involved in that, but also, too, I don't think that we can afford it. And so I think as we move forward towards what hopefully will happen when we get back, I would hope that this time out of Washington can allow members to reflect and see how we're truly going to direct this country. You also know that we have another member that just resigned, so that now will bring us to a one-seat majority.
And I just wanted to point out, it's not just Speaker Johnson. I was listening to Congressman Mike Lawler talking about it was idiotic and destructive to Congress, and that we're not going to get everything we want, and the only way to advance the conservative movement is through winning elections. In reference to, what Marjorie Taylor Greene did, but idiotic and destructive to Congress, you know what? $1 trillion in interest every year, that's destructive to the American people and everybody who's been elected. And you understand this, Congresswoman. The Republicans need to remember who they represent. It's not Congress, Sean. It's the American people. And the Republicans who voted for this swamp monstrosity, they ought to watch their hides.
I mean, I'm right there with you. What I tell people is, if you're frustrated with your representative, and remember, I represent Pinellas County in the wonderful part of Florida, but what I can tell you is that not one of my constituents want me to go up there and fund this, and so I listened to them, and I thus voted the way that I did. But if you're frustrated, make sure that you're making your voices heard. Your representative will listen to you. I also, I don't like to say that just because someone does something like what MTG did, that's stupid or idiotic. That was a toolkit that we all fought for, and that is absolutely her right, and she is fighting for her constituents, and I believe other people as well. And so I think if you're wanting to talk about winning elections, then we need to deliver on the promises that the Republican body made to the American people. And the number one thing we promised is that we would secure our border. I think the fact that this went through the way that it did right before Easter break, I think the fact that it was introduced in the middle of the night, that we didn't have 72 hours, that you had millions of dollars going to foreign countries instead of our own to secure that. I think that that's a slap in the face. And so I'm but one member, but what I can tell you is the American people should make their voices heard and phone your representative.
No doubt. It's outrageous. We're not securing our own border. And that was a promise that was made, to your point. But let's leave the funding battles on Capitol Hill and let's move over to the White House. It's just a den of delusion when it comes to the economy. They're still pushing the lie that they're helping the middle class. Watch.
President Biden is on the side of the American people. He believes in giving the middle class a fair shot, protecting Social Security and Medicare, and securing Americans' rights and freedoms. He will never stop fighting for that future.
And so if you're sick of the lies, cover your ears, because we've got some more doozies coming at you. This one from Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen on the impact of raising corporate taxes.
Well, I believe the tax increase would not really harm the competitiveness of business. Most studies that have been done suggest that there is very little, if any, economic benefit from having cut the corporate tax rate, that almost all of the gains went to the wealthiest taxpayers. And it's deprived us of the revenues we need to deal with our budget deficit.
And it's not just this administration pushing all the nonsense about Bidenomics. A former White House resident is also singing old Joe's praises.
The president certainly doesn't get the credit he deserves for where our economy is. I mean, we have the lowest unemployment in more than 50 years. Like, even from when my dad was in office, who is generally recognized as a very good steward of our economy.
Congresswoman, it's troubling. When you can't recognize a problem, there's no way this administration is ever going to fix the problem. They think that the middle class in America are doing well.
I mean, this administration and this D.C. swamp seems to hate the middle class, which is exactly why you're seeing them shilling for corporate interest. Let me just put this in perspective. You want to talk about unemployment? Tyson just fired American workers to hire illegals because they don't want to pay American wages. So to sit here and see a privileged woman on The View of all things lecture the American people and say that Joe Biden's doing wonderful for this country, not only is it a slap in the face, but it's a straight up lie. Right now, our economy is struggling. We have people that are struggling to make ends meet. I get calls all the time to my office, and what does Congress do? We spend more money. Well, you know what that leads to? That leads to inflation. I'm not going to be a part of it, and I'm frankly sick of these people gaslighting Americans.
I just want to bring this alert to everybody. The Senate still does not have a deal to vote on the spending bill before midnight, the deadline tonight. So urgent, pair Chad Pergram, he knows it all. So we'll see. Maybe the people have the Republicans, just like the 112 Republican nays in the House. Maybe we'll get some nays in the Senate. Congresswoman, thank you so much. Paulina Luna, terrific to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, Congresswoman.